Okay, we have no presentation to the commission. Thank God, this has been a long night. All right, we have public participation. I think we have two speakers. Do we get any more cards? Was these only two? Okay, the first speaker I want to call up is going to be Annette Lucas.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Annette Lucas, and I've just briefly had a chance to speak with Mr. Gould. He's been kind enough to explain the state requirements of 3 acres per 1,000 residents of parkland, which is not our current requirement, and that the city's requirement of 5 acres per 1,000 residents is our current requirement. Now I'm asking what the OVOV will be requiring for parkland, since the scoping documents have changed from 5 acres per 1,000 residents in July of 2008 to 3 acres per 1,000 residents on the July 28th OVOV document. First of all, I'd like to thank you for working so hard to provide us with the parks and the open space that we have. I truly appreciate what you're doing, and I hope that OVOV will continue the 5 acres per 1,000 residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucas. Rick, comment?
I can give you comments now, perhaps wait till the end of public participation.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Thomas Surek. Surek? Is that correct pronunciation, Surek?
Good evening. My name is Tom Surek. I've been a resident of Newhall for over 9 years. I'm here today to address the subject matter of a letter to the editor, which is today's signal. You should all have a copy of that before you. For those of you in the audience who are interested, I have copies available in the back. Similar to the comments raised by Annette, the existing city, the existing city standard for park space is 5 acres per 1,000 residents. Okay, this is shown in the existing general plan as a goal, as a standard, and as a requirement. On July 28th, a draft version of the OV came out. This is on page L34 of the document. And it says, in the past, which I believe means prior to that date, the city and the county have both adopted a standard of 3 acres per 1,000 residents. As far as I know, the general plan has not been changed since June 25th, 1991. So I'm here to address whether or not you are aware of this significant reduction in the required parkland for the citizens of Santa Clarita. If you support this, and if you do, where has the public discussion been regarding this significant change? I also would like to know where the city is going to be getting its park space to meet the current requirement or any proposed new requirement. There is no provision whatsoever in the OVOV for meeting any open space requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Surek. Rick, no comment?
Yeah, I have a few comments, and this will probably result in a longer discussion or some written documentation that I'll provide you at a later date, but I'll do my best. And for the benefit of Commissioner Hardy, who hasn't been part of the discussions for the last several years, and also our new commissioners, I'm going to digress just a little bit and talk a little bit about the subject of parkland dedication. Generally, in cities in California, by law, cities and counties are allowed to enact legislation that requires developers of significant tracts of land to provide public facilities as part of their development because of the impact on the local community. Those fees or dedications can entail many different things. They can run anything from fees for the construction of roadways, fees for or actual construction of schools and fire stations. And in this particular case, they can result in fees or dedication of actual land for parks. The legislation that was adopted by the state of California many, many years ago basically allowed local jurisdictions like ours to adopt our own ordinance or our own law to require developers to do exactly that. And that state law is generally known or colloquially known as the Quimby Ordinance, and you'll often hear that term used, and it really means an in lieu dedication of for parks. And that dedication can either be in land, it can be in a constructed park, or it could be in fees. For example, in a highly urban environment where no land is available, a fee may be paid rather than actually providing parkland, so that that fee could then be used in a not too far away to build on a piece of land that was readily available. The city adopted shortly after incorporation an ordinance that is in our Unified Development Code that requires developers to pay that fee based on a standard and a calculation. The county also has a similar ordinance, or a Quimby ordinance as it's generally called. The methods of calculation of both of those ordinances are different. And by making a very general statement, in recent years, the calculation of the city's ordinance has been much more aggressive than the county's ordinance, primarily because we base our fees on the current value of available land. And the county's ordinance tends to do the same thing, but they don't reassess the land very often. So the assessments tend to be several years old. So our ordinance tends to be more aggressive. That is what that is what our current Quimby ordinance is based on. When the city adopted our Quimby ordinance, or our legal requirement for developers to dedicate land, we adopted a standard of 3 acres per thousand. In other words, a developer had to provide us 3 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents that the development would bring forward. And I want to stress this point. That is the maximum allowable by state law. State law will not allow us to require, and I want to stress the word require any more than that. So that is the current ordinance on the city's books, it is the current ordinance on the county's books, and it is pretty much the current ordinance throughout the state of California in cities and other jurisdictions. In 1991, the city adopted its first general plan. And in this general plan, in addressing the parks side of this equation, the general plan said that the city's goal, and I want to stress that it is not a requirement, the city's goal is to achieve a standard of 5 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. And it has been the city's goal to this day. Without going into what happened between 1991 and the present day, a lot of things have occurred. This community has matured, it has grown. The size of the community, the political strength of the community has changed. Our interactions with developers have changed in the last 5 years fairly dramatically. And it has had a direct impact on the amount of parkland that we are now receiving from developments as a result of our park in lieu ordinance. I got to make sure I get this right, so that I get this out exactly right. The Parks and Rec Master Plan adopted in 1995 said we think we ought to get 4 acres per thousand. The general plan said we should have 5 acres per thousand. There was a lot of discussion at this commission's level in the year 2004 about trying to get to the general plan standard, the goal of 5 acres per thousand. This commission asked the city council to consider making sure or requiring developers to make it 5 acres per thousand. The Planning Commission concurred, and both commissions advised the council to ask developers for a standard of 5 acres per thousand. The council also concurred. Since 2004, our Parks Planning Department and the Planning Department in general, for all tract maps that have been approved, have been getting a standard of 5 acres per thousand for any development submitted to us. And the distinction is we can only require 3, we are asking for 5, and the developers are complying. So we are meeting the legal test of the law, and we are actually getting 5 acres per thousand. In fact, we are getting more. I think you will remember some of the commissioners. I think Commissioner Redd, you were on the commission at the time of the synergy development approval process. But in that development process, not only did the city obtain a 6-acre park, which exceeded the standard that was built by the developer is also paying the full in lieu fee. So essentially a double Quimby dedication for that particular development. The reality is that the development community now understands in order to meet the goals of the city council, they need to exceed the city's 5 acre per thousand standard, and they have been doing so. And I can also point to the River Village development, and I can tell you that other developments that are occurring that are still in the, I guess I'd call it the pipeline, that are not approved yet, they know what's coming. They're expecting 5 acres per thousand, and we continue to hold to that standard because that is the standard that the city council expects us to obtain. And I hope I'd made the distinction between what we're legally allowed to require and what we can ask for. That being said, I'm not familiar with the OVOV document that Mr. Surak references or Ms. Lucas references, and I will go back subsequent to this meeting and read that OVOV document. Without seeing it, I will tell you I have heard nothing that would suggest there is any retrenchment or any desire to go back and reduce that number. If anything, the Parks and Rec master plan that you adopted just 1 month ago talks about not only maintaining the 5 acre per thousand standard, but actually trying to raise that.
Get there.
So you've actually adopted a document that is a fundamental underpinning of OVOV that talks about the 5 acre per thousand. So my pledge to you is not only will I go back and research this, but I will get back to you in writing so that we can make sure that you understand the full ramifications of how our in lieu dedication system works.
Questions from the commission?
Well, then, as I understand it, and of course you'll confirm it when you read it, the document, perhaps the OVOV document, states what the state law is.
That's entirely possible, and I just don't know. It may say, and I saw the article that was passed out to you just a little bit ago. It says "in the past" is the first 3 words in quotation. So I don't, without having the context of the whole document, I really can't respond to it. And frankly, we can't have a discussion about it tonight because this isn't on the agenda. I can certainly agendize it for a future discussion, but I can tell you from staff's perspective, and Tom Riley and his Parks Planning staff are here tonight. And if you go back and you look at the dedications, either in fee or in land, that we have received over the last 4 years, since you guys and the City Council gave us that direction, have been at 5 acres per thousand or more, and that's what we're receiving. So I'd like the opportunity to go back, review the OVO document. I don't know if it's a mistake. I don't know if it's contextual. I just haven't read it. I apologize for going on vacation.
Oh, you're entitled.
Yeah. Commissioner Harder, please.
Rick, I know we've been working on this for years, trying to get the shortage of park space eliminated within the city of Santa Clarita, and I think we've done a fairly decent job of progressing towards that. If we can keep the developers doing what they are doing now and complying with that request, I think we'll end up making even more progress toward that. One of the questions I had is, since we are dealing with the county and the OVOV, and they are working with the same 3 acres, are they getting the same response from the developers that we are, and
Session?
and the same concessions? Thank you.
Concession.
As far as that, or are they just sticking with, okay, we're going to require 3, and you can give us 3?
I would be remiss to say that I know what the county is doing, and I didn't mean that in a joking way. I don't know how they're applying their standard now. I can tell you that because of pressure from the city, there is improvement, in my opinion, in the exactions that the county has made from developers. And the example I would give you is the new park that was opened in Fair Oaks Ranch about 6 months ago. It's about I believe it's about an 8-acre site in that development, which was a fully built, fully completed park by Pardee Homes, which is a pretty significant departure from some of the things that we have seen in the past. So I believe that because of the city's monitoring of development in the county, we are seeing improvements. That being said, because of the county standard, and remember, the county is somewhat handicapped here. We control our own borders and we set our own standards and we deal with appraisals of our land. The county system is an ordinance that is applied throughout all of Los Angeles County and 10 million people. And I don't know how many square miles that is. It's a bunch. It's a whole bunch. And even though they will set their Quimby standard based on the value of the land in the general area, making a change like we're able to do and asking the developers to come up to a higher standard is just not possible in an organization the size of Los Angeles County. The other thing that we tend to do that's sort of lost in this whole Quimby discussion is that our standard is probably much tougher in terms of what we're willing to accept. And I can't speak for the county, but I can tell you we would not accept land if somebody was going to give us a piece of land for a park. We would not accept it if it was encumbered by an earthquake fault, had power lines over the top of it, or other things that you can think of like that. We want a piece of land that's usable, that makes sense for a public park, and that is not always the case in the County of Los Angeles. So in general, not only is our ordinance at a higher level from a, what we're willing to accept, we are actually asking for more, and I don't want to say it's an effective requirement, but it is, because those developments need to be approved by the city before they're built.
Mrs. Rack, I see you standing there. You have some paperwork. Do you want to give the secretary? You have another comment? Well, let me ask real quick then.
Just please.
Commissioner Red, I want to
Hold on a sec.
this is not on the agenda, so we're not in
I
a
know.
position to have a public
I
discussion.
am not
about it.
here to debate anything. I want to clarify, my statement had nothing to do with the Quimby Act.
Sir,
There's
hold on
no
a second.
reference to the Quimby Act in the existing general plan.
Okay, let me interrupt
Mr.
for a
Gould,
second, sir.
excuse me.
Just a second. I want to first clarify something.
Yes.
We have 1 minute to give public comment. I want to make sure the commission is agreed that we can let you comment further. Is it okay if we allow him to comment further on the issue?
Well, I personally think it doesn't make sense to have further conversation at this point until Rick has an opportunity to research the OVOV
Okay.
plan, is my thinking. But I have no objection to the additional minute, but I don't know that we can resolve much more. Go ahead and take the minute.
I'd like to see Mr. Surratt come back when we've got this agendized and take the 3 minutes or whatever
Okay.
you are allowing, and at a time when we can actually sit down and get into the nuts and bolts of this.
Commissioner Cornell?
I agree. I think we should wait until staff has had a chance to research it a little more and get back to us.
Harley.
That would seem to make the most sense.
Okay. Sir, the commission would like for Rick go back and do some research and bring it back, and maybe we can agendize this, and we're going to be happy
Well,
to invite you
my
back.
point was, I had not said anything about the Quimby Act. My point had nothing to do with the Quimby Act. The Quimby Act is a means of achieving a goal. My points regard the goal, have nothing to do with the Quimby Act, and I will leave you some documents supporting what I said. This is a requirement I've been talking to, not a goal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Secretary, can you make copies of that, and maybe we can take a look at it?
If I could just make one comment, we're on your side. We want 5 acres or more per 1,000. So we certainly want to get to the bottom of this so we know where we stand. But from what Rick has explained so far to me, and this came up at the OVOV meetings that I mentioned that I had gone to, but wasn't explained as precisely as you've done for me, and I appreciate that there's a state law out there and all we can do is lean on the developers to get what we'd like to have in simple language. So, but we want that too, the same 5 acres or more.
I agree with the commission.
So
I
we're
think
not
that
at odds with the gentleman making the, bringing up the concern.
I just want to comment that we're not at odds with you at all. We understand we understand what you're going. I just like give staff the opportunity to research that in order to come back and we can discuss it at a later date. Rick, do you feel that we can agendize this in regards to OVOV, or as regards to just talking about the 5 acres?
I think what would probably be beneficial for all of us is for us to spend a little bit of time putting this into writing. We recently prepared a memorandum for the council comparing the county ordinance versus the city ordinance. So we have some background material already, and I'll be interested to see what's in the OV document.
Okay.
And we'll bring it out and we'll lay it out. And quite frankly, we're happy to meet with Mr. Sirac or Ms. Lucas at any time and sit down and go through the documents face to face, because oftentimes, I know, dealing on email or on phone calls, it's, you don't always get the answers you want, and sometimes you both have to sit elbow to elbow and look at it, and we're happy to do that anytime you like.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Rack, I encourage you to do that. Sit down with Rick and see if you can come up.
And
with
there are
something.
2 meetings on 2 study sessions, Planning Commission study sessions, September, I forgot the date, is it 16th or something, and then another one October 21st. But the September one is on land use, so wouldn't that kind of be part of this?
It could. I would have to look and, we typically get an agenda about a week before, so we can look and see what topics they're covering. Unfortunately, a general plan is really a land use plan, so it could be a myriad of subjects, so.
Okay, but, I wish I had my calendar with, I do. Come to think.
Any additional comments from the commission? Rick, any additional comments? Okay. Thank you, sir, for coming in. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, going to move on. Recreation Inclusion, and it's going to be presented by Diana Boone.
Chair Red, Commissioners, good evening. It's good to be here. I'm Diana Boone, Recreation Administrator, and I'm pleased to be here to report to you on our city's new inclusion program, along with Dr. Jan Tolan. Our inclusion program's focus is about including people with disabilities into mainstream recreation programs. We have in recreation a number of programs that deal specifically with people with disabilities, such as the Adapted Swim Program that was initiated in 1995 at Newhall Pool. That program offers the ability to teach people with disabilities how to swim on a 1-to-1 ratio with instructors. We also have various contract classes that have been offered for people with disabilities. Currently we have bowling for special needs, hip hop for special needs, and acting for special needs. Additionally, the city has supported Special Olympics for a number of years through use of the Parks and Recreation fields and facilities, as well as a monetary donation on an annual basis. But inclusion is specifically geared toward bringing people with disabilities into mainstream recreation programs. And I was very pleased that my former boss, Shannon O'Messy, had the heart and the vision to bring this to our city. She brought John McGovern, a nationally renowned expert in the field, to train staff. She submitted a decision package in the city's budget process and asked for funding to initiate a program, which was granted. And as a result of that, through a long search, we contracted out with Dr. Jan Tolan to initiate the program. Dr. Tolan is a certified recreation therapist. She has a doctorate in recreation therapy and in human development. She is an associate professor at Cal State University Northridge, and she's here to tell you about the initial steps we've taken in our inclusion program, which actually she started in the end of April of this year, so we're in our infancy. But please welcome Dr. Tolan.
Welcome, Dr. Tolan.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And it's good to be associated with a city that is so forward-looking and wants to provide services and bring disabled people into the community, and has a track record of doing that. As far as the process goes, we began by developing a protocol and forms that would be able to be used by staff to let us know about the requests that came in. Over the summer, we had 8 requests. Most of those were for individuals who needed one-on-one aids because of autism, Asperger's. And we were able to find inclusion aids that were able to work with those. We had a great deal of support from child development also in helping us to identify individuals who were interested in working as aides. Currently, we're evaluating the program, the summer events. We're doing that by asking the families to complete evaluations, those in writing, and return them to us. And we are getting feedback from the inclusion aides themselves as to how we can better facilitate this whole process. I don't think anything speaks of success any louder than the children who are involved and the families that from which those children come. I'd like to tell you about 2, both little boys. One, their family had just moved to Santa Clarita from the Torrance area. Their child is extremely brilliant. He has autism. He also has a very good heart. And in spite of his disability, he wants very much to be included. And when summer school did not work out for him this summer, his parents came to the camp and wanted to have him included, but they recognized that he couldn't go on any of the field trips because of the overstimulation of the bus ride, and also there were not therapists that would be willing to spend a whole day with him. Well, we were able to get inclusion aides to work with him, and I'm very happy to say that this little boy participated in all camp activities. He went to all of the field trips, and his parents are extremely grateful to the city for the experiences that they've had with their child with the recreation department. The second family that I want to tell you about was also very grateful, and I want to quote what the mother said. She said, "Nowhere else can my child get the social interaction and opportunity to play with normal children and go to places like Disneyland and all the other great field trips like he can at Camp Clarita." His family have decided, because of the positive experience that they had, that they would like to start a foundation or a scholarship for to pay for a child who comes from a disadvantaged household, but who has special needs, so that they too can go to camp. So I think as we look to the future, we say what's going to happen, and I think we can be pretty sure to say what's going to happen is growth. I think that by word of mouth alone, we will see tremendous growth in this program. According to the Santa Clarita Valley Asperger's Association, Autism Association, there is one child in the United States, one child in every 150 who has some form of autism. When we look at the figures for Santa Clarita, that jumps dramatically. One child in 94 has some form of autism. So I can I think you can see that the potential for growth of this program is enormous. The other thing that we are doing is exploring. We're exploring the needs of individuals in the community who want to be together in some kind of a recreation program. For example, wheelchair sports. We have received some requests for some of those specialized programs, and we recognize that there will be a need, and we'll continue to explore exactly what that need is as we go forward. Questions?
We're here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tolan. Thank you, Diana. It's great to know that we are a kind of community that looks at all aspects, all the needs of our kids. Special needs is so important. The things you guys do, we do with Special Olympics is so important. Questions from the commission?
Yeah, why are we so lucky in Santa Clarita that the ratio is so much higher? Do we have any ideas?
I don't think there's an answer to that. I think it's just a continually trying to figure that out, but there's no definitive reason.
Mr. Hardy?
I have a question. Looking at the staff report here, it states that trained aides in working with children with special needs were hired and assigned to campers, for the children who needed adaptive measures. Were these full-time positions or seasonal or?
They're seasonal positions and they're part-time. And these people have been trained in how to deal with people with special needs, and they were hired on that basis.
Now, that works out great the first year, and what happens the second year and third year? I mean, you start, I would hate to start losing good people, people that are adept at doing this. And I know that the patience that it takes sometimes, to work with children that do have these problems. And if we get good people that we're hiring and, if they're seasonal, I guess it makes it tough to keep them on, I would assume.
Well, the great part about it is the schools provide special needs aides in their classroom. And when we're providing recreation programs, it's when school's out. So we hired the aides from the schools. And we retained them from the summer so that we can keep them on for recreation programs throughout the year. And then they were so excited to be working something besides summer school. And there's a lot more that want to work with us, but of course we're choosy. So next year I think that we'll have a excellent supply.
That's a fantastic win-win situation.
Yes, sir, it is.
Commissioner Cornell?
I would just like to comment, I think it's a wonderful program, and the more families that we can include in the activities in our city, the better, so I commend you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harley?
Great work, great work.
Thank you.
Great work. Diana, when we're looking at, I think, Doctor, you mentioned growth. And Diana, what do we anticipate as far as, are we able to handle the growth at this time with the programs? What is it going to take? And I think my second question is, have we done any kind of strategic planning in regards to special needs and, in the community?
Not to my knowledge as far as strategic planning. As far as growth, it's going to be exponential. Because the people that we're serving and looking to serve aren't just people with autism, and it's not just children. It's people of all ages and all kinds of disabilities, whether they be physical, mental, or other forms of disabilities. Our goal in recreation is to create community, and we want to include people who that's a little bit harder for. So yes, it's going to grow exponentially, and the budget could grow exponentially, but I think like most recreation programs, you start it, you have people sign up, You get the word out, and then you create your waiting lists. You go back and you ask for more funding, and you see if there are grants, and you have to grow incrementally. So I don't know exactly what rate we'll grow at, but I guarantee we will grow.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Doctor, for coming tonight. Okay, our next item on the agenda is going to be the crossing guard program. That's going to be presented by Susanna. No? What do we forget?
Number 2.
Oh, that's number 2. Oh, Susanna like she's ready to go. Okay.
Good job for 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's sports complex. Oh, yeah. It's going to be presented by who? Rick. Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Chair Red. I'd just like to make a very brief introduction. This is a bit of a departure for us in terms of how we've done some of our presentations before, because the sports complex project is a bit unique. Although it really isn't that unique, I think it's an opportunity for us to introduce you to some other city staff that you wouldn't normally see. You probably all recognize Glenn Bogna sitting behind the computer over here, who has done a lot of the our more recent park projects, but sitting next to him is Balvinder, and I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, Balvinder. You got to do that. So. And backing Balvinder up is Tara Concepcion. Both of them work in our Public Works Department in our Capital Improvements Project section, and they are significant parts of a very complex $25 million project, and I want to take the time to recognize their efforts, because oftentimes when we do groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings, when we open these things, the work that these folks do behind the scenes can go unnoticed. And so one of the reasons they're here tonight is to sort of showcase some of the stuff that they get to do to make these projects a reality. And I want to thank them for coming.
Thanks, Rick.
Hi, I'm Howie Mandel.
I'm Sally Field.
I want to introduce you to a very special place.
Lark Ranch began almost 50 years ago. It was started by a group of visionary parents who were not willing to accept institutional surroundings for their developmentally disabled children.
Lark is a unique facility with a community of individuals who are all special and contributing members not only of Lark, but of the larger community of Santa Clarita.
But they need your help to maintain this outstanding program and continue to deliver to its residents the kind of care that will help keep Lark Ranch operating for another 50 years.
Please give generously.
And let's continue the miracle of Lark.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sturkey, and Elvis is in the house. Come out to Lark Ranch on September 21st for a fabulous day of entertainment with an Elvis impersonator and great food and fun.
Did you know the first gold in California was discovered right here in the Santa Clarita Valley, long before Sutter's Mill? Did you know our valley was the birthplace of the California oil industry? Did you know that when Los Angeles joined the rest of the country by rail, the tracks came together in Santa Clarita? You might know we're a popular location for filming, but did you know we always have been? Learn all about Santa Clarita's fascinating history at scvhistory.com or visit the Saugus Train Station Museum in Old Town Newhall, weekends 1 to 4.